Hi, I'm Jilly G. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make my gluten-free corn cakes or griddle cakes, whatever you want to call them. So what they are is a pancake that's made with cornmeal. So I've got some cornmeal here. The first thing we need to do is cook the cornmeal. So I've got 3/4 of a cup of water. And we want to bring that up to a boil, and then we add in a 1/4 cup of cornmeal. So while we're waiting for that to come up to a boil, I can mix together my other ingredients here. So for the rest of the dry ingredients, which that is kind of a dry ingredient, and I know there are recipes out there where you just substitute some of the flour with cornmeal, but I like these ones a little bit better because the cornmeal is cooked first. But that's just me. The other one's good too, but I like this one better. So I've got 1 cup of my gluten-free flour, and then I've got a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, and a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. All in there. And then we'll just mix this together. Now, if you're using white sugar, it would be 2 tablespoons of white sugar that you would add in to this mixture. You could even use brown sugar or whatever sugar you like. I thought about using date sugar, but in the end I decided to go with honey. So I'll be adding in my honey with my wet ingredients. And then over here I've got 3/4 of a cup of just regular milk and 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar. This would originally be sour milk, which is this or lemon juice, or a lot of times when a recipe calls for sour milk, I will actually use plain whole fat kefir, unsweetened. I don't have any of that today, so this method works just as great. So just mix that together, and then that can kind of do its magic while we're waiting for the cornmeal to cook. So in this container, I'm going to mix my 2 eggs. I've got my honey, I've got 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and then I do need 1 tablespoon of melted butter. Very carefully melt that so it doesn't explode. Perfect. That is most of the way melted. I can just let it sit there and it will continue melting and then hopefully cool off enough before I add it in with my eggs. There's 1 egg. And there goes our 2nd egg. Got a spatula here. I'm going to add in my 1 tablespoon of honey. And I actually was debating whether or not to stir my honey into my cornmeal mixture after it was cooked. Either way works. My water is almost up to a boil. In goes my 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And then just mix this together. And even though I've got everything measured out and I'm kind of doing it all separately, you can just measure directly into the saucepan when it comes time to mix everything together. So there is that. In just a minute, when my butter is cooled off, I'll add that to my egg mixture. Now that my water is up to a boil, I can dump in my 1/4 cup of cornmeal. I'm going to turn the heat down to about medium. I like to use a spatula so I can mash out the lumps, but you could use a whisk. And we want to cook this for about 5 minutes. And because this is such a small amount, you don't want to walk away and let this burn. So after 5 minutes, take it off the heat. I like to put it on a hot pad. Now, normally, you could just do all of this right over there, and then it's all right there next to your frying pan. So now I'm going to stir in my sour milk. And sometimes I find it's easiest to go just a little bit at a time, mix it around, and then add in the rest. sure to scrape off your spoon just so it's all getting mixed in. Now again, you could use a whisk, but the spatula is fine. Go in the rest of our sour milk. Now you don't have to use apple cider vinegar. That's just what I have, so that's what I used. You could use lemon juice or just regular white vinegar. And it doesn't matter if your milk is room temperature or not, because we're going to be pouring it into this. Which it helps cool off this mixture so when we put in our eggs, it doesn't cook our eggs. So once that is all mixed together, I've got a cast iron skillet here, and then I've got some bacon grease for frying. I'm going to turn my heat on about medium-high. Cast iron always takes a little bit longer to heat up. So once it's hot, I will turn it down to probably about medium-low. So now that this is all mixed together, we can add in our dry ingredients. And then just mix this together. Scrape off my spatula again. Now we can go our eggs, honey, and vanilla. I was going to add in my melted butter, but I didn't. We can just add that in straight into the pot. And then just get in here and mix this together. And last but not least, our melted butter. Nothing to it at all. I'm going to get all of this out of the way. And then I've got my spatula here, and then I've got a plate to put my corn cakes on after they're cooked. And then my 1/4 cup measuring cup I'm going to use to scoop out the amount that I want to pour into my skillet. Now that my skillet is hot, I'm going to add in a little bit of bacon grease. And I'm turning the heat down to about medium-low. And now just pour in your batter. I can usually fit about 3 in this size of a skillet. But you can make them as big or as little as you want. And once they look like this, they're ready to flip over. I think these are much more forgivable than regular pancakes. Usually with regular pancakes, the first batch really doesn't always look very pretty, but you can see these ones look amazing already. And then once they're fully cooked, I remove them to another plate. And then add a little more bacon grease. And then just keep going. This is also a recipe that is so easily doubled. And with this amount of batter, and using the 1/4 cup measuring spoon, I can usually get 12 corn cakes. Ooh. Don't forget to turn the heat off. So there we go. 12 corn cakes or griddle cakes, whatever you like to call them. I think in some areas they even call them flapjacks, but I don't really know for sure. Oh, I'm just doing a terrible job. flipping my pancakes, serving my pancakes. They're not even pancakes, they're corn cakes. There we go. And you can serve these with whatever you want. Maple syrup, fruit syrup. Today I've got some of my homemade cherry strawberry jam. That recipe is here on my channel and video. Maybe I should have gotten a spoon instead of a little knife thing. Make sure each one has a nice amount. Okay, let's give it a bite. You could always add extra butter on top if you want to. If you use powdered sugar, sprinkle that on. Whatever you like. These are so good. They're like pancakes because they are, but they're just a little bit different. And they're a little bit heavier than a traditional pancake. That's also here on my channel and in my cookbook. But when you're looking for something maybe a little different for breakfast, these are perfect. And even though we cook the cornmeal first, they really come together so fast. And then this recipe, as I mentioned, is so easily doubled and you can make a lot at one time. And they freeze really well too. I always say that. I don't know if you're tired of me saying that, but I always like to have things that if you make a lot at one time, that you can freeze them and eat them later and they're still delicious. And I've mentioned so many times before too, is when you're gluten-free, it's really nice to have things in the freezer that are ready to eat because we don't have convenience foods like everybody else. But if you've watched some of my other videos, you know that I don't go out to eat, hardly ever. And so convenience food for me is what's in my freezer that I've already made that I know is gluten-free. So that's just what I do. Let me know what you think if you make this recipe. I hope you do. They really are delicious. But thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have any questions or comments, let me know and I'll see you on the next one.